Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and with the recent patch 11.1 preview, we got a lot more information regarding the Season 2 of the War Within expansion, from the new renowned factions of Goblin cartels to some of the different mounts that you'll be able to collect, to transmogs, as well as even dungeon and raid content and gearing changes arriving with Season 2. Speaking about gear, we also got an earlier preview of some of the different class tier sets, as well as tier set bonuses arriving in Season 2, which they're doing something different. They're adding a 2-set bonus that's going to be role specific and a 4-set bonus that's going to be spec specific, which is a very different designed approach compared to previous seasons and previous expansions. But we still do have a nice preview of all the different class sets, which I wanted to dive into as soon as possible. It is a long video, so utilize the chapter marks found down below in order to skip to the most relevant sections where I want to do a preview of all the different class looks, but also all the different bonuses we have so far. And it's a good idea to leave a comment down below, giving your own overview of what you like and what you don't like about the current tier set designs going forward, because they're looking for feedback, and trying to give them feedback as early as possible may lead to changes, hopefully good changes, in the near future. As always, if you want to see more updates for the patch 11.1, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right into these newest class tier sets. So in the patch 11.1 of Undermine, all of the tier sets for every single class and playstyle will come with a 2-set role specific bonus, which is very different to how most 2-piece and 4-piece tier sets function. This bonus is going to be shared amongst a variety of different roles, and it's going to be different depending on your role: tank, healer, melee DPS, or ranged DPS, which is the weirdest thing ever. And I think last time we had shared tier set bonuses was maybe something like, I don't know, Battle for Azeroth with some of the Azerite traits. A lot of classes took like generic ones, so everybody had the same one for a good while. But every single class is going to use these bonuses a little bit differently, and they'll play into core unique mechanics of every single playstyle. So your 4-set is going to be at least functionally different for every single spec, but your 2-set is going to be relatively similar amongst similar class playstyles. The playstyles and the tier set bonuses we have are Jackpot, which is a range tier set bonus, where every single range class has a chance to proc some sort of a powerful effect that's unique to them, and major cooldowns will always grant you that powerful effect. Winning Streak is the melee DPS 2-set bonus, where certain spells and abilities will grant you a stacking damage increase, but other spells may end up removing that stacking bonus, so you're playing around a RNG casino type of a tier set where you get a power swell and then a reset where you could build that power back up again. Luck of the Draw is the tank specific bonus, where all of your abilities have a chance to activate a major defensive while providing you with a massive damage boost. And for healers, all of your spells and abilities have a chance to activate a healing over time effect on an ally, but this healing over time is also can be consumed when that ally takes critical damage, to then do a big burst of healing to that target, so it provides you just flat healing increases. First, we have the Death Knight actual set, which looks amazing. I think they captured the whole Death Knight aesthetic perfectly with the gloves, the shoulders, the helm. It looks amazing, and some of the recolors look really good. I think right now on PTR, they do have some of the 3D bits for chest pieces and belts not displaying, but the rest of the set looks absolutely amazing and perfectly fits that Death Knight silhouette and aesthetic. So when going over the class of Death Knight bonuses, let's start out with Blood. Your 2-set allows you, and this is a pretty good way of us to display exactly what Luck of the Draw looks like. Each time you take damage, you have a chance to activate Luck of the Draw, causing you to cast Survival Instincts for 4 seconds, which I don't think is a Blood Death Knight ability at all. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a vampiric blood, so that needs to be corrected. But afterwards, the damage then is increased by 15% for 8 seconds after Luck of the Draw activates. Your 4-set, however, allows Luck of the Draw to have 2 seconds increased duration. While Luck of the Draw is active, Death Strike will cost 2 less runic power and can strike up to 2 additional nearby targets. The Death Strike mechanic alone, the fact that it can hit multiple targets, could be plenty exciting all on its own, because there's so many abilities and effects that work off of your Death Strike to further empower it, but it also is the main way that you use to heal yourself and keep yourself topped off as a Blood Death Knight, and I think that's actually fairly exciting. You also have a couple of components with Sunland to further help amplify the effectiveness of that Death Strike ability as well. So I think there's some very interesting synergies that could be created here. But the fact that you can Death Strike and clear, I think will give Blood Death Knights major survivability improvements, especially in content like Mythic Plus. From there, we move on to the spec of Frost Death Knight, where their tier set bonus is Winning Streak, the 2 set, which increases the damage of your abilities have a chance to increase the damage of your Frost Strike and Glacial Advance by 2%, stack it up to 5 times, but Obliterate has a small chance to remove the Winning Streak bonus, which seems like a bonus that's going to have Death Knights prioritize an Obliteration playstyle, so potentially less Breath as Zaragoza builds. The first set reads, Winning Streak stacks up to 3 additional times, and while on a Winning Streak, your Frost Strike and Glacial Advance have a chance to cast a Frost Scythe at 50% effectiveness. Frost Scythe can now benefit from Winning Streak as well, which means you are probably going to be playing Frost Scythe pretty aggressively, which has an ability to plays around with killing machines. The more of those you can get, the faster cooldown you can get for Frost Scythe in order to deal heavy cleave frontal damage. But it looks like you are probably going to be going into a Shattering Blade and potentially Shatter Frost Strike type of build, or potentially even Glacial Advance and pick up both of them in order to get more chances at those Frost Scythes for additional cleave. So it looks like we are going to be not playing most likely a Breath of Zaragoza build unless they can find a way to tie that ability back into that tier set. The Unholy Death Knight tier set is also going to be a Winning Streak tier set that allows your abilities to chance to activate Winning Streak, increasing the damage of Death Coil and Epidemic, stacking up to 10 times. Death Coil and Epidemic all have a chance to remove the Winning Streak buff. However, casting Dark Transformation instantly grants you 10 stacks of Winning Streak, and while Dark Transformation is active, the effectiveness of Winning Streak is increased by 100% and can no longer be reset. This gives Unholy Death Knights a lot of consistency around the ability to Dark Transformation, but it's also a flexible enough tier set where, it allows you build to go in a variety of different ways. It is a runic power specifically empowering build, however, so it is going to have you focus on your diseases and death coils and epidemics to do a huge bulk of your damage, so you're probably going to be going into a runic power spending build heavily. This likely means you'll probably be going into Summon Gargoyle a lot more aggressively, but potentially you could also go with Sudden Doom type of a build for death coil and cleave, so it could give you a couple of different variations of how you're playing into it, but it looks like you're going to be leaning into Death Coil and Epidemic builds a little bit more heavily. I wonder if with so many different uses of Epidemic and Death Coil, if Vampiric Strike and the haste component of Sunlane might actually synergize with it a little bit better. The Demon Hunter set looks that of a Fel Reaver, which looks absolutely amazing from the shoulders to the helm and everything. It has a very futuristic look, and normally Demon Hunter sets are a lot more not as covered up, but this one is a lot more bulkier, a lot more armored up compared to the other sets, but the whole Fel Reaver aesthetic I think really does make up for it. With the Havoc starting tier set being the Winning Streak one, just like everybody else, with their abilities have a chance to increase the damage of Blade Dance and Chaos Strike by 1%, stack it up to 10 times. Blade Dance and Chaos Strike have a 50% chance to remove the Winning Streak. However, the 4 set kind of ends up leaving Winning Streak up for a little bit longer, as it allows it to persist for 7 seconds after being removed by either Blade Dance or Chaos Strike. However, entering Demon form sacrifices Winning Streak to gain 1% critical strike per stack consumed, lasting for 15 seconds. So instead of actually losing out on a Winning Streak buff, Demon Hunters instead sacrifice it, which is kind of thematic for them anyway, but they still retain it, and in a way it seems like it should be able to overlap. Then there's also a part about them entering Demon form to be able to consume all the stacks to gain Critical Strike, which is a direct damage increase thanks to talents such as Know Your Enemy, where Critical Strike actually increases the damage of your Critical Strikes, so you're probably going to be very Critical Strike heavy, which you currently are anyway. But I wonder if the sacrificial effect is only going to come from Metamorphosis to get the most amount of effect, or if the I-Beam demonic combos will be also enough in order to be able to gain that effect. Hopefully it does mean that the I-Beam can also consume it, just so you can get more regular uses out of it, with Demon Hunters being so hit and run. So it does seem like Demon Hunters, at least Havoc, is going to be very much a hit and run class like it has been for a good bit now, but I wonder how the talent adjustments in 11.1 change that playstyle a little going forward. With Vengeance Demon Hunter, their tier set is also Luck of the Draw, just like Blood Death Knights, where taking damage has the chance to activate it, causing it to enter Metamorphosis for 4 seconds, and increasing your damage jump by a considerable bit. Your 4 set, however, gives Hunt a high chance to refresh its cooldown whenever you gain the effect of Luck of the Draw. And by that, it means refresh as in reset it completely from what I can tell, with the Hunt ability giving you quite a considerable bit of chaos damage empowered by Luck of the Draw to be even stronger, but also inflicting damage over time to your target, and also the Pursuit invigorates your soul, healing you for 25% of the damage done by the Hunt to that target. So more damage, more of an aggressive playstyle for Vengeance to be able to take down your targets, dealing far more damage to have better self-heal through Leech, but also even more damage for your Hunt. It just seems like a very, very powerful combination. It gives you one of your strongest abilities that you can activate a lot more readily, but also grants you incredibly good mobility. I'm actually very, very excited to play with this tier set and see how this one functions once we get some seasonal dungeons available in 11.1 PTR. The Druid set has this whole Drustvar aesthetic behind it, so I had to put it on Uncle Tyrion. It does look really good. There are 3D bits like the belt and such missing at the moment on the current model, but I mean, look at those shoulders, look so good. Hopefully we'll see even more Druid, a Drustvar aesthetic in the future, but I really do like the looks of this one, even though it doesn't quite fit the whole Goblin theme as of this moment for 11.1. Starting with the spec of Balance. Being a ranged DPS playstyle, they get the tier set, the 2-set bonus of Jackpot, where your spells and abilities have a chance to activate the effect. For them specifically, they get to activate Growing a Wild Mushroom at a nearby enemy's location at 100% effectiveness. Casting Celestial Alignment or Incarnation will always hit a target with a Jackpot, so potentially more AoE damage, but also more single target damage and an extra dot to add to an enemy target. With the 4-set Starfall and Star Surge damage against targets affected by a Wild Mushroom, damage over time effect is increased by 20%, and that is something that is active at all times, whether you do have Incarnation or not. So it's going to give you quite a bit of that sustained damage, but also some control with how you drop your mushrooms. Whether you choose to activate them yourself with 3 charges on a 30-second recharge, or get passive mushrooms through Sunseeker Mushroom plus the tier set mushrooms that you'll also be able to grow. So it seems like a very, very standard bonus that is going to amplify some of your best and biggest astral power spenders. When it comes to the Feral Druid, you get the Winning Streak bonus, where your spells and abilities have a chance to buff Winning Streak, which increases the damage of Ferocious Bite, Rip, and Primal Wrath, stacking up to 10 times. Ferocious Bite, Rip, and Primal Wrath also have a small chance to remove Winning Streak. Your 4-set plays around Apex Predator's Craving Talent. When you consume that proc for a big old free bite, become a big winner, dealing physical damage to Apex Predator's primary target, but also increasing the damage of all of your periodic bleeds by 4% for 6 seconds. So this one doesn't seem to actually play with a Winning Streak buff that much. Instead, it plays around Apex Predator's RNG. So it's all about trying to get more passive Rip ticks in order to get your next Ferocious Bite to be free, which is going to be huge in AoE content, since you have multiple targets that you can put a Rip up on with the talent of Primal Wrath, so you can get a bunch of Rips rolling. But I imagine you'll probably, at least in single target, will go summon for even more bleed ticks and more consistent bleed ticks to get more value out of a tier set, so possibly maybe a haste heavy build for Feral Druids just so you can get more Apex Predator's Craving procs. Was kind of surprised because I was hoping the tier sub would synergize with the 2-set some way, somehow a little bit better, but it seems to be kind of independent all on its own. Then we have the spec of Guardian Druid, which plays around the Luck of the Draw, where damage you take has a chance to cause you to gain survival instincts for 4 seconds, increasing your damage by 15%. But also your 4-set is very, very interesting. After you gain Luck of the Draw, your next-gen Druid abilities now cast another Druid ability at 125% effectiveness. So what does that even mean? It sounds like Convoke, but you activate it little by little. Honestly, it sounds like Convoke, but one that gets activated from your basic abilities. And it says Druid abilities, so I imagine it could be anything from Rested Druid, Balanced Druid, Feral Druid, or Guardian Druid, so potentially more defenses, potentially self-healing or ally healing, maybe even a big, I don't know, Rake or Rip on the target for more damage, which can be very, very exciting. I do wonder what they mean by Druid abilities and exactly what counts as a Druid skill that Guardians will have access to with this tier set. But this actually sounds kind of interesting from the randomness perspective of what spells it can draw from, which I think could be interesting for Guardian to give him more damage or potentially even better overall survivability. Because imagine getting like a better version of Ironfor or a empowered version of Friends and regen randomly as you use abilities, staying for a more aggressive build. That could also be really, really good in that way from a tank perspective. And lastly, we have the Restoration Druid, which is insurance. Anytime you use the abilities, you have a chance to apply insurance to a target. That will heal them over 15 seconds. Insurance is consumed when an enemy drops or an ally drops below 40% health, and that's the bonus that all heroes are going to share. Your 4 set allows Life Bloom 30% chance to apply insurance to its target for 10 seconds, which is probably going to be either yourself or a tank in most cases, or maybe like an ally, or maybe like a DPS if you're playing a Mythic Plus build with a big bloom playstyle. When insurance is consumed or removed for any reason on an ally, it leaves a missing rejuvenation, regrowth, or wild growth to heal them over 15 seconds, which seems like that could be a very powerful bonus to just leave a hot for 15 seconds. Hopefully this does have a priority where if, let's say, they don't have a rejuve, it'll more likely apply rejuve, because that would probably be better than a hot of regrowth. But if they already have a rejuve to apply regrowth, just amps up the rejuve further. Or wild growth if they have, let's say, both of them active at the same time, which could be really, really good and plays around their unique mastery of the more hots you have on a target, the more healing you provide them, which I think could actually be really, really cool, and allows the insurance to kind of synergize into Residue playstyle just a little bit more in an interesting way compared to Holy Priest, which we'll take a look at in just a moment here. The Draxier set currently doesn't really look like anything on the actual dragon models, and the visages as of this moment don't work, but the actual set, I guess it looks alright. I've never really been a big fan of the Evoker set so far, and the actual PTR version in-game with the in-game lighting might do it a lot more justice, but as of this moment, can't really say that this one is my all-time favorite. Starting with augmentation, they also get jackpot, where abilities have a chance to hit a jackpot, cause an upheaval at 100% effectiveness that also does not knock enemies up in the air, but casting Breath of Eons will always trigger a jackpot effect, so a little bit more guaranteed there. The 4 set allows their upheavals to have a 100% chance to grant Essence Burst, so even more resources, and eruptions cast with Essence Burst now deal 25% more damage, so there's a bit of a feedback loop here as well. Together with some of the other challenges they are doing, as well as some of the adjustments, the extra upheavals, I believe, should end up working out with your buff mechanic just a little bit better, so you can maintain that buff window for a lot longer. Should give him quite a decent bit of overall performance increase, since you don't necessarily, I guess upheaval will do decent damage too, but the buff duration mechanic should be able to contribute towards your raid or group-wide damage just a lot more, giving you that big window to then synergize with your Breath of Eons to get those upheavals. That should be actually a fairly sizable and strong tier set in my opinion. The Spec of Devastation also plays around Jackpot, where your abilities have a chance to launch Shattering Star at 3 nearby enemies at 50% effectiveness. Casting Dragon Age always hits enemies with a jackpot. The 4 set reads, casting Shattering Star or hitting a jackpot increases the damage of your next Empower spell by 20%, stacking up to 2 times, which is fairly exciting. This allows Evokers to play around with the Shattering Star ability in a lot more aggressively, and I imagine Focusing Iris and Arcane Vigor should also function for the Shattering Star. Even though at 50% effectiveness, it should still be quite a sizable ability. And the interaction with your empowerment abilities like a Charity Surge or Fire Breath only makes all the sense, and I think it's going to be a very strong but also very straightforward playstyle in the future. I know most Evokers right now are Scale Commander, but there's a lot of value towards empowering abilities and then following up with another effect afterwards, especially since you can shatter multiple enemies but cleave them with Mass Disintegrate. But I wonder if Flame Shaper with its Fire Breath damage increase, which this one is also going through a number of changes in 11.1, could potentially be in a much better spot for a big Fire Breath build going forward. Then we have the Preservation Healing tier set, which grants you insurance, which functions exactly the same as every other healer for the 2 set, but the 4 set is a little bit more interesting. Verdant Embrace always grants insurance to you and your target for 6 seconds, and its cooldown is reduced by 4 seconds, which is actually seems like the most simple tier set, but it could be really, really powerful altogether. Now, the tier set allows your Verdant Embrace ability to only grant the insurance for 6 seconds, so it seems more like an emergency heal or like a momentary heal over time that you might be able to use for a short bit, but the synergies with Verdant Embrace that Evoker has is kind of huge. Because of the Echo mechanic, you can apply an Echo to multiple targets, and when you Verdant Embrace one target, you Verdant Embrace everybody, so you could potentially Verdant Embrace the entire raid group. With Verdant Embrace, there's also a number of talents that synergize with it, like Lifebind, where enemies that you or allies that you Verdant Embrace to, you are now bound to them, causing 40% of the amount on them or you to also heal the other partner. So there's so much healing synergy with so many people getting Lifebound together. Also, using Verdant Embrace proxy abilities like Dream Breath or Living Flame to be more healing, but also that extra healing also works with Lifebind as well, so you can either get a really big breath or some really strong living flames that can heal multiple allies. Plus, you also have that healing over time from insurance, but also emergency-wide healing. This can give preservation opportunity to cloak and coat everybody in a big Verdant Embrace. Big raid-wide cooldown goes out. You pop everybody up with that emergency heal component of insurance. This could also be very, very exciting, but also quite a bit of a setup that you'll have to do as preservation. Though this one actually excites me the most because I love the ability of Verdant Embrace. It is a very powerful tool, especially in smaller content like Mythic Plus, so I think it has some scalability, but also should be pretty strong in dungeon content as well. The Hunter set is very interesting because it has this very much Dark Ranger appeal to it, with a lot of these spiky bits and skulls on the side and the helm that kind of covers up the face. A lot of players seem to really enjoy this one. Like all the other sets, I think some of the 3D geometry is also missing off of this, but what they got so far is definitely a very unique set that doesn't really do what Hunter sets usually do, which is just taking some of the raid enemies or dungeon enemies and making pelts out of them. Instead, it gives you this chain link armor to work with, and I think it's very, very different and very your aesthetic. The Beast Mastery 2 set bonus is going to be that of a Jackpot, where your abilities have a chance to proc Jackpot, which will fire a barb shot at 200% effectiveness at a nearby enemy. Casting Bestial Wrath will always hit the Jackpot. With a 4-set hitting, Jackpot infuses your pets with a mutagen, causing the auto attacks to deal nature damage, but also cleave to up to 5 enemies within 10 yards for 10 seconds. So even more cleave and AoE for Beast Mastery, which is something we like to see. Mutagenic attacks also reduce the cooldown of Bestial Wrath by 1 second, so it means you'll probably end up going for talents that synergize heavily into Bestial Wrath and further empower it, and there's some simple synergies that Beastmaster I think can utilize here to take advantage of this type of a playstyle. But also with additional barb shots, I wonder if it'll give you a far more focused generation to go a little bit more aggressive on your resource spending. The Marksmanship Honda Tier set I actually thought was the weirdest one out of the bunch. Your 2 set gives you Jackpot that increases your auto shot damage by 600% and reduces the time between auto shots by 2 seconds for 10 seconds, so I guess you can auto shot a lot more aggressively, which is the weirdest one. Auto shots and auto attack damage for marksman. Like, what? Casting True Shot always grants a Jackpot, which I guess it's a damage increase, which seems weird until we read the 4 set. Consuming Lock and Load also fires an explosive shot at 200% effectiveness, and that makes all the sense in the world. Because Lock and Load procs off of your auto attacks, so if you get more auto attacks, you have a more chance to trigger Lock and Loads for even more aim shots, and then it kind of starts to work out together. Plus, added together with the rework Monstership is getting an 11.1, it should be fairly strong to get more aim shots, especially when empowered by your Eagle, not really a pet, but like a pseudo pet, that's also going to empower that damage as well, so that might actually be very, very strong all put together. And the Survival 2 set is going to be a winning streak that causes your Wildfire Bombs or abilities to increase the damage of your Wildfire Bomb up to 6 times. But Wildfire Bomb has a chance to remove the winning streak buff. However, Survival actually wants to remove winning streak because that's how you proc your 4 set. When your winning streak ends, your next skill command deals 200% additional damage and generates 3 stacks of Tip of the Spear, which is actually quite a solid bonus since Tip of the Spear buffs the rest of your abilities, your bombs, your AoE, your single target. So actually, the more often you consume this, the better. So you kind of do want to use grenades as much as possible to try to see if you can remove the bomb bonus. So for them, it's actually a very, very straightforward option. The Mage set has this primalist look about it, and many players have pointed out that it looks very much like Veranoth, which was originally one of the primal proto-dragons leading the charge in the expansion of Dragonflight, and it really does have that same look to it with all these different crystals. And there's different variations that do match the frosty aesthetic, but also the arcane purple aesthetic, so I'm sure everybody will be able to find a version of this set that you prefer. The Archimage 2 set bonus, like all the other specs, is going to be Jackpot, where your spells and abilities have randomly to proc a Jackpot, grant you clear casting and 8% increased spell damage for 12 seconds. Casting Touch the Magic always grants you Jackpot, which seems like a very solid combo. The 4 set, whenever you hit a Jackpot, you also gain Aether Attunement at 100% effectiveness. Aether Attunement being a talent where every time you consume, or after a few consumptions of clear casting, you gain Aether Attunement, where Arcane Missiles now cleaves, doing more damage to your primary target, but also cleaving up to 4 nearby enemies. So potentially a very missile-focused clear casting build is going to be the play for Arcane Mages going forward. For Fire Mages, they also get Jackpot, which reduces the cooldown of Combustion by 3 seconds. While casting Combustion always hits a Jackpot at 200% increased effectiveness, so seems like it's going to be a cooldown reduction on combustion specifically. With the force set, whenever you hit a jackpot, your damage is increased by 15% for 7 seconds. If you would gain jackpot from combustion, the duration is increased by 100%. So it's a very straightforward buff your combustion window as much as possible and get your combustions back really quickly, which seems like a very straightforward tier set option. The Frost 2 set is also Jackpot, which fires a Frostbolt volley, dealing damage to your primary target and damage to up to 8 additional targets. Casting Icy Veins always hits a Jackpot, which is kind of interesting to give him even more AoE cleave damage. With the 4 set, Icy Veins cause you to hit Jackpot at 100% effectiveness every 10 seconds for 30 seconds. So also seems like a bit of cooldown reduction playstyle with Icy Veins, but also playing around the big burst window of just additional cleave of frost damage, which I imagine could also potentially even shatter. So it just seems like frost mages and mages in general are just getting very straightforward bonuses that just increase the overall damage. Now the monk set is also very unique because normally monks have those monk hats, but not really full-on mask with a Super Saiyan kind of haircut to it, which I actually do like, but I don't like this recolor specifically. I like more a golden yellow one instead, but the actual set looks really good. A lot of players have also pointed out the tattoos in the set, and yeah, the tattoos really are striking as they go on your back, your chest, and down your arms as well, which is pretty awesome to see because we don't really have too many armor sets that also add tattoos on your character, so that definitely makes it a little bit more unique. The Brewmaster 2 set bonus is Luck of the Draw, which grants you randomly to, whenever you take damage, you randomly can cast Fortify and Brew for 6 seconds, so better defense. Your damage being increased by 50% is also a nice bonus. The 4 set, however, when you do gain Luck of the Draw, your next 2 casts of Blackout Kick deal 150% increased damage and incur a 2-second reduced cooldown. And there's already a number of synergies for Blackout Kick from your Shadow Pan Vigilant Watch, which further increases the damage of your flurry strikes. Blackout Kick is also great for maintaining shuffle. Blackout Kick can also cleave multiple targets. Blackout Kick also increases the damage of a next Keck Smash, so there's a little bit of damage synergy. You can also cleave additional targets, which could also be nice, plus also dealing more damage. But Blackout Kicks can also grant you additional physical protection because whenever they crit, you have an additional chance to get a stack of Elusive Brawler, so possibly more defense with just more opportunities to dodge your targets. Then there's also talents like Blackout Combo, where Blackout Kick empowers your next ability, whether it's Tiger Palm, Keck Smash, Celestial Brew, or Purifying Brew. So more regular uses of Blackout Kick could allow Blackout Combo to be something that's passively constantly active, or at least active a lot more often, either increasing your damage, granting you better cooldown reduction, giving you better cooldown on your brews potentially, or even allow you to manage staggering a little bit more evenly, like to pause it completely or gain additional stacks of Purified Chi instead. So there's definitely some synergies that could be created out of this Brewmaster playstyle, which seems very aggressive, but does have some defensive components as well, but also have a higher chance to spawn more healing orbs, so that could be potentially even more self-healing. So there's like actually some decent bonuses here in general. With Mystery Rivers, you get insurance, so your spells and abilities have a chance to apply that hot that can become emergency healing, so that's always nice. The 4 set casting Renew and Mist applies insurance for 6 seconds, so that's also a little bit more guarantee there, which is really good for some burst emergency healing that Mystery Rivers can play with Renew and Mist. But also healing of insurance is increased by up to 50% in proportion to the coverage of Renew and Mist has on you and up to 10 allies. So it looks like you were playing what sounds like a very Renew and Mist heavy healing over time build. The way I'm reading it, and you can correct me in the comments down below, is the more Renew and Mist you have active, the more healing the insurance does. So you'll probably be playing into a heavy Lotus Infusion build, most likely, or maybe even Chi Harmony. Either one can work. You'll most likely be playing, I think, around Pool of Mist for that kick to reduce the cooldown of Mist so you can get more Renew and Mist all over the place. And you'll probably be playing around the Rushing Wind kick in order to empower the healing of this Renew and Mist on all allies. So a very healing over time heavy build, most likely in the future for Mistweaver, which I think will work out pretty well even in content like Mythic Plus, but should definitely be pretty strong within raids, with Mistweaver is able to do quite a bit of healing throughput. With the Windwalker tier set, you get the Winning Streak, like all the other melee, which increases the damage of a Rising Sun Kick and Spinning Crane Kick by 3%, stack it up to 10 times. Rising Sun Kick and Spinning Crane Kick have a chance to remove Winning Streak. Your Fist of Fury applies 1 stack of Winning Streak guaranteed, when cast and when finished channeling completely. The damage of your next Fist of Fury is increased by 5% per stack when Winning Streak is removed. Your winning streak is removed once it reaches maximum stacks. So the whole point here is to actually use as many abilities you can to remove winning streak to empower your Fist of Fury, but try to score as many winning streak as possible. So you might actually maybe even delay your Fist of Fury until you're close to cap in order to try to give yourself as many stacks for the next Fist of Fury. Again, very straightforward playstyle, very similar to survival, where you kind of want to remove the stacks in order to further increase your damage, but there may be something more that you can play with some of the new talents arriving with 11.1. Big fan of the Paladin set in general with its lion shoulders. I almost feel like it's made for a human Paladin in a lot of the cases, but this one looks amazing overall, and many players have pointed out that it almost looks like an elven Paladin with the shape of its helm, and I think it does fit really well for Blood Elves and other elves really well. Definitely one of the more unique sets. It's also missing some of the geometry, but I imagine the full version in-game will look even better than it does here. The Holy Paladin 2 set is insurance, so your spells and abilities have a chance to put that hot with emergency healing on an ally. The 4 set, Divine Toll applies insurance to allies and it heals for 8 seconds. Divine Toll's cooldown is reduced by 1 second each time you spend Holy Power, so a very straightforward playstyle that plays around a very consequential ability that not only provides you more healing, but also a bunch of Holy Shock, so a Holy Shock type of playstyle is very much likely here, but also more burst healing because you will have a very different window with Divine Toll. Normally Holy Paladins have a choice either to get you Divine Toll so you can also cast Holy Shocks fairly regularly so you can get even more Holy Shock value, or to reduce its cooldown so you can better synergize with some of the other talents. But I wonder if you could go for even more cooldown reduction just to have this thing down to 30 seconds, but maybe 15 seconds, 20 seconds depending on the procs, depending on how many of those you could put up on allies. This one seems like it could be very interesting. I think I'll probably go with more overall Holy Shocks and play around a Holy Shock playstyle, so maybe light a Martyr most likely. Seems like a very straightforward bonus, but I feel like there might be some more Paladins we'll be able to utilize once we get access to some of those 11.1 talents. Then we have Protection Paladin with the 2 set for Luck of the Draw, where taking damage has a chance to grant Guardian of Ancient Geeks for 4 seconds while increasing your damage. The 4 set, while you have Luck of the Draw, Shield of the Righteous refunds 1 to 3 Holy Power and extends the duration of Luck of the Draw by 0.5 seconds up to 10 seconds. Not a big fan of the RNG with the Holy Power generation. I guess you could just luck out and spam a bunch of shields to increase the duration of Luck of the Draw, and that'll probably be pretty good. I think cool refund on Shield of the Righteous is nice. I think it's a good thing. I just don't like how it's so RNG though. But I guess for Protection Paladins, if it's more damage, it is better survivability because you can get a much better mitigation window with Shield of the Righteous. Luck of the Draw duration is also nice, so I guess it works. I just hate the RNG, I'll be honest. And finally, we have Retribution, which gains Winning Streak as a melee DPS, which increases the damage of your Templar's Verdict and Divine Storm, stacking up to 10 times. Templar's Verdict and Divine Storm have a 12% chance to remove Winning Streak. The 4 set, when you lose Winning Streak, you get the last Holy Power spent back, and for 4 seconds, you cannot lose Holy Power, and the damage of your Holy Power abilities are increased by 10%? Wait, so you actually refund your power, Holy Power, you cannot lose Holy Power, so you can just spam Templars or Storms? And you do 10% more damage? Hold on a second, so you do want to lose a Winning Streak, but you kind of want to try to see if you can synergize together inside of your Wings window, if at all possible. This one seems really good. Because so Templar's Verdict and Divine Storm heavy, I do wonder if you'll play Templar with it. Because Templar will give you an extra button for you to use with Light's Guidance with Hammer of Dawn, which doesn't have synergy with the tier set at all. But Herald of the Sun also doesn't necessarily either outside of Wake of Ashes. But I wonder which of the abilities you will end up playing at the end of the day. The preset is a little bit more standard with a halo on top of its head and a lot of bright shining lights to represent holy and discipline, but I imagine some of the other variations could give it a very shadow-esque and very void-like appearance as well. Not a biggest fan of this set myself specifically, then again I never really enjoyed the presets or a huge portion of them, but many players seem to be enjoying this set in particular, especially if you're a big fan of the cloth set aesthetic. The Discrease 2 set is like every other healer. Your abilities have a chance to provide insurance to your allies, but the 4 set is interesting. When your Power Word shield is completely absorbed in an ally, they're granted insurance at 40% effectiveness. Allies with insurance or an absorb effect also receive 15% increased healing from you, and that one I think could actually be fairly sizable because in most cases, I guess you'll try to put absorbs on allies or hopefully have enough insurance through atonements. So if you have atonement healing plus insurance on top of it for 15% more healing, that could be very strong no matter what type of build that you play. But it also does allow certain talents that are absorb heavy on an entire raid to potentially be pretty strong as well. I'm thinking specifically of the talent of Luminous Barrier, which provides an absorb effect on all of your allies within a raid, with this effect decreasing beyond 5 targets, so it has some scaling to it. It's better in smaller groups, so like 5-man content, but it gets a little weaker on raids. But if, let's say, your allies just get hit with a big effect and you gotta top everybody up and get them back up and ready as soon as possible, if you can time Luminous Barrier to the point where you can apply the shield, go through a big atonement window, in the small moment where the shield doesn't quite break instantly, 50% more healing on everybody could be massive if you can set it up correctly. I think in most cases you'll probably just play around, try to pop powered shields on as many people through Rapture, and that's most likely where you'll get a lot of your wins plus the insurance buff. But if, let's say, you could line up a Luminous Barrier where you can hold for just a handful of seconds as you barrel down a bunch of damage to atonement heal everybody, that could also be kind of insane for Disc Priest as well. But it also makes things like Divine Aegis very, very strong, because that continues to also provide a protective shield to allies on critical heals, so you'll most likely will play a very crit heavy build in the future if you do end up investing heavily into Divine Aegis. The Holy Priest tier set is also very similar to that of Dusk, with the insurance 2 set function exactly the same. The 4 set just allows your Holy Word, Serenity, and Sanctify to apply insurance for 10 seconds on one target, while Apotheosis is active, and your healing is increased by 1% for each insurance active on allies. So very Apotheosis focused talents that you'll probably be picking up going forward in future build, and playing around the Apotheosis window probably a little bit more aggressively, but seems like a very, very straightforward option. As a Shadow Priest, you get the chance to proc a Jackpot that fires a Void Bolt at an enemy for 200% effectiveness. Casting Dark Ascension or Void Eruption always hits a Jackpot. The Void Bolt ability seems to be just a random ability, or rather it's actually part of the Void Eruption that becomes Void Bolt. So that's the Void Bolt that he's talking about, is the Void Bolt granted from entering Void form specifically and getting that little Instacast Bolt ability whenever you do that. But the rest of your 4 set reads: hitting a Jackpot grants you 5 seconds of Power Infusion. Mind Blast and Void Bolt deal 50% increased damage while Power Infusion is active. So it looks like you're going to be going for a very instant casting build potentially. This kind of takes you in multiple different directions when it comes to Priest, at least it does for me. Because on one hand, you could be playing around Void Eruption for a big 2-minute window that synergizes with PI and granting yourself more instant cast abilities and ton of damage. But you're also doing a lot of instant cast damage, and Dark Ascension seems to like it'll synergize with that a little bit better, but it's better for non-periodic damage like Mind Blast or those random Void Bolts. Plus, you can combine it together with Void Weaver potentially for even more Void Blast damage, and then you have the Collapse in Void, which also is non-periodic damage as well. So it kind of pulls me in 2 directions. I feel like Void Eruption could be good, but I also think Dark Ascension synergizes here. I have a hard time telling which one is probably going to be better, but we'll have a better idea once we get some 11.1 testing. The number of rogue changes that are happening in 11.1 is actually kind of criminal, as rogues are barely getting anything new, but our set is one of the best, especially if you love the whole piratey theme and the outlaw stuff. I mean, even the little skulls over on the sides, on the shoulders, and even the belt, which doesn't display as of this moment, all of those look incredibly good, and this is definitely one of the most unique, and I'd say even one of the best rogue sets we've seen in a very long while, though I am biased as an outlaw player. Assassin Rogue tier set is Winning Streak, where abilities have a chance to increase the damage of Envenom, Rupture, and Crimson Tempest, stacking up to 10 times. All of these abilities also have a chance to remove Winning Streak. The 4 set reads: when you would lose a Winning Streak, you have a chance to instead gain maximum stacks of Winning Streak for 4 seconds. These cannot be removed and have a 30% additional effect while immune to removal. So you basically just want to remove your winning streaks as much as possible, ideally. This one seems like a very straightforward one that just buffs the damage of all of your basic bleeds and your venoms in terms of effectiveness. Seems like a very, very straightforward bonus that gives you potentially a decent window that will likely end up working really, really well inside of a death mark, but I just can't really think off the top of my head some gameplay synergies or talents that you would pick for this one specifically. The Spec of Outlaw also plays around the Winning Streak ability, increases the damage of Dispatch by 6% and only Dispatch, so potentially you won't be playing around it between the Eyes Focus build. Dispatch has a chance to remove Winning Streak. With the 4 set, Roll the Bones has a 12% increased chance of granting additional combat enhancements. That is also very, very strong on its own, just from the Roll the Bones perspective, but also applies a 1 stack of Winning Streak for each combat enhancement granted. Oh, wait, this could actually be very, very strong. Stacks applied by Roll the Bones can exceed the normal Winning Streak maximum of 5, so this could be also kind of exciting and quite a bit of a change for Outlaw Rogues. This is primarily because most Outlaw Rogues play around Crackshot, which will likely still be relevant, but it has us focusing on between the eyes rather than dispatches in terms of damage. So I wonder if we'll actually go prioritizing dispatches together with some early dispatch for even more dispatch damage to benefit from our tier set even further. So maybe less of a between the eyes Crackshot build or Vanish build, and potentially playing around lethality or cold-blooded with some of the dispatch focused talents like Inevitable, and maybe just to get even more damage out of it. Could potentially turn the spec into a slightly different build. Hard to tell exactly if this will be enough though, but it is exciting and could give Outlaw Rogues a slightly more sustain-y playstyle rather than a bursty playstyle, but time will tell if that will be exactly how this functions, or if maybe I'm reading into it a little bit wrong here. With the spec of Subtlety, you also get Winning Streak, which increases the damage of your Eviscerate, Secret Technique, and Black Powder up to 10 times, and all three of those abilities have a chance to remove the Winning Streak bonus. With a foreset, while Shadow Dance is active, you cannot lose Winning Streak, and get an additional stack of Winning Streak each time you would gain one, and deal additional 6% shadow damage per Winning Streak stack. Very, very straightforward bonus. They're just raw damage increases for Subtlety, probably the most straightforward one that has some control, and could potentially give you a very powerful and very strong Shadow Dance windows. Because of the heavy Shadow Dance and Shadow damage enhancements, you're probably going to be going all the way into Dark Brew to increase that Shadow damage even further, and most likely going to be focusing on Shadow damage like Gloomblade, for instance, to further increase the output of that ability during those windows as well. Maybe even potentially Gormo's Bite for even more shadow damage. It's all very exciting, and I cannot wait to see exactly what kind of talent adjustments Rogues will make, but this one seems like the most straightforward bonus out of all the 3 specs of Rogue so far. The Shaman set looks very un-Shaman-like. It's a lot more futuristic than I imagined it to be. I don't necessarily hate it. I think new things like that are fine. It's just I wasn't really expecting for them to go full on like mech type of cyber look to them. Although if you're a big fan of playing a Rogue, the shoulders are going to be massively sitting on your character with what looks like 2 singularity black holes hugging your shoulders, hanging on by the blades. I mean, it does look really good and fairly menacing as well. As an Elemental Shaman, you play around the mechanic of Jackpot, which summons a Fire Elemental or a Storm Elemental for 8 seconds. Casting Ascendance always hits a Jackpot. With a foreset, when you summon or extend a Fire Elemental or a Storm Ally, your Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, and Lava Burst deal 10% increased damage for 8 seconds, which is a little bit different than what they have in the actual Blue Post versus the tooltip, but it basically is all around summoning elementals and giving yourself a damage window, but it may end up having you play around damage combo abilities so you can throw out as many spell casts in a very small window. So I wonder if you'll end up banking up maybe Stormkeeper together maybe with a Surge of Power for a bunch of lightning bolts after you summon your elemental, fire or storm elemental, and banking up a bunch of procs to then use inside of that Ascendance window on top of it. So it'll be a very burst focused playstyle, and I think maybe Stormbringer might end up taking a backseat because technically Tempest also gains benefits from this, but Farseer gives you a little bit more control and a lot more burst with your ancestors during those windows as well. So potentially I could see them going towards a Farseer build for that big momentary burst window and playing around those burst windows around summoning your elementals if they proc often enough. Then we have the spec of enhancement. We're just going through a number of changes, so a lot of these are going to function very differently than compared to the current version of enhancement that we're playing with today. But their bonus is going to be Winning Streak, increasing the damage of Storm Strike, Crash Lightning, Lava Lash, stacking up to 5 times. Spending Maelstrom Weapon has a chance to remove those bonuses. The foreset reads, when you gain a stack of Winning Streak, you reduce the cooldown of Doom Winds by 2 seconds. When Winning Streak is removed, reduce the cooldown of Doom Winds by 10 seconds. So it's a very Doom Winds focused playstyle, which I guess could work because they did improve Doom Winds to be a little bit more of an AoE Storm Striker type of ability that amps up your Wind Fury weapon damage. And maybe there's other components that function really well with Doom Winds, like Ascendance of Doom Winds would be really good, even though they are doing some stuff with the Maelstrom builders and trying to give them more baseline ability damage for Enhancement Shaman, but a little bit perplexed around the Doom Winds and the Storm Striker type of gameplay. But maybe after the reworks in 11.1 for Enhancement Shaman, it'll have a bit of a better, clearer picture once we actually get to play with a full package of Shaman with the tiers to test out on some train dummies, as well as play it in raids and dungeons. For Restorer, your bonus is going to be the 2 set of Insurance like every other healer, but the 4 set, when it casts Healing Rain, one ally in the radius has Insurance applied to them. When Insurance is consumed, your next Chain Heal or Healing Surge or Healing Wave is increased by 10%. So it doesn't seem to be a stacking bonus for your healing surges, but rather it gives you your next chain heal, healing surge, or healing wave. So maybe you want to consume it as quickly as possible, which could be pretty good. This also does work with Surging Totem, however, so it'll likely be okay as well. But so far, I gotta say, the Shaman tier sets so far have been like, maybe there's some play to it, but definitely hasn't felt as exciting to read as some of the other classes so far. But maybe numerically they'll be a lot more significant, and maybe I'm just missing something, missing some kind of context here in terms of just how strong this year's says will truly be. But definitely a little bit unsure about the Shaman overall though. I know that I said the Rogue set is one of my favorites, but the Warlock set has to be my close second, with those big Fell Hunter shoulders, belching flames, but also this creepy mask-toothed face, which I think is missing the shaders out of this moment, so it'll look a lot better so you don't actually see the human face behind the mask. But the actual set itself looks really, really good in my opinion. The shoulders and the helmet definitely a standout option, and I think it really does hit that Warlock silhouette rather nicely. All Warlock specs 2 sets are going to play around Jackpot, with the Jackpot for Affliction being a 12% increase to your haste for 12 seconds, which is, I guess, pretty good. I was kind of hoping for more class mechanics, but haste is a good stat for Affliction. Casting Summon Dark Glare always hits a Jackpot. The first set, hitting a Jackpot also increases the damage of your Unstable Affliction by 50%. That is a sizable number, and causes Unstable Affliction to spread up to 3 targets within 40 yards for 12 seconds. That is actually kind of huge. I miss when you could put Unstable Affliction on literally every enemy. You can kind of sort of already do that in PvP, but at reduced effectiveness. But the bonus and insta spread, that could be really, really, really good overall though. I mean, overall, the damage of the ability is also quite nice, and the amount of overall output it could do is fairly solid. Unstable Affliction could also deal additional damage, but I'm not sure why it's not getting caught by the search function here. But this seems like a very, very strong bonus, and I think could make Affliction one of the best cleaving casters in the game. So if there's any council fight, if you can get enough procs of the Unstable Affliction spread to multiple targets, I feel like Affliction could be literally at the top of the charts, given the right environment. As Demonology, you also get Jackpot, which summons a Dreadstalker at 165 effectiveness. Casting Demonic Tyrant always hits a Jackpot, so even more Dreadstalkers to summon. Casting Hanogo Dawn causes you active Dreadstalkers to cast Dreadbite at 50% effectiveness damage. This damage is increased by 10% for each soul shard spanned into a Hand of Gul'dan. Wow, what a good bonus right here. I love how it actually lets you kind of take control of additional demons and force certain abilities now. I actually really like this one a ton. This does mean that you'll have to play around the actual duration of Dreadstalkers and monitor it very, very carefully as a Warlock, however, because now you kind of want to set up big combos while Dreadstalkers are active. But those Dreadstalkers can do quite a bit of damage and cleave multiple targets, and you can further increase with Dread Calling the effectiveness of those called Dreadstalkers by quite a bit to really get some big ramp up windows, while further increasing the attack speed and critical strike chance of the Dreadstalkers, so you can make a proper puppy dog build. I actually kind of love it. It doesn't mean you have to have some setup with Houndmaster's Gambit to set up a Vile Fiend or possibly a one of the Charhounds or a Gloomhound in order to empower your dogs, but the extra bites from those Shadow Touch could also be amplified by the pets or by the Vile Fiend as well. So this could be some real cool synergy there overall. I kind of love it, but I think the amount of cooldowns you'll need to use and the amount of lineup and monitoring of buffs you'll have to do might be a lot for Demonology, but I'm still excited about what this could offer. As a Destro, your tier said Jackpot is going to cast a flurry of 12 Demon Fire bolts at 200% effectiveness. Casting Summon Infernal always hits that Jackpot effect. Hitting Jackpot increases your mastery by 3%, and your spells gain maximum benefit from mastery chaotic energies for 10 seconds. Wait a second, that could be really, really, really strong and really good altogether, but it does seem to fire off of Jackpot specifically, so it seems to be very RNG focused, or rather playing around the Summon Infernal playstyle, if anything. The reason why that one is exciting is because your mastery kind of gives you like a waning buff and debuff for your damage. You basically have 10%, or depending on your mastery, up like right now I have at least 10%. This is kind of like an old character, honestly. But my abilities right now on this character and PTR, abilities have I'd build is deal 10% increased damage plus a random amount up to 10% additional, so you can potentially double up, and when this effect occurs, you basically have maximum effectiveness of that mastery, allowing you to fully invest into it. So things like maybe power overwhelming could be very, very strong there as well. And I think Chaos Incarnate potentially could be less effective since you don't necessarily need to, I guess you could play around with RNG, but then you also have guarantees of 100% full benefits of your mastery. So I'm wondering if you don't have to take a point into Chaos Incarnate anymore for a Warlock for any builds whatsoever, because it does give you like a little bit of higher chance to roll higher on your mastery to make it more consistent. But this seems like going to be very, very strong. Plus with some of the changes that Warlocks are getting in 11.1, I think those could make Destro a very, very strong option going forward. I think the warrior set is the only one that actually meets the standards of a goblin-esque set, because this looks kind of like a goblin bruiser or a bodyguard to that of a goblin. A little bit of metal, a little bit of spikes, some sort of energies flowing out of the shoulders with a mask. I'm a big fan of the actual set itself with the shoulders as well as the gloves and the claws on the hands. But I think this one is the only one that really fits the undermine, underground kind of plated aesthetic compared to all the other classes, which have a lot more of that class fantasy to them. But then again, warrior class fantasy has been very, very straightforward and standard, and I think the set does match it, but it is missing some of the other 3D components that really help finalize the piece. Arms Warrior 2 set is Winning Streak, which increases the damage of your Mortal Strike and Cleave by 2%, stack it up to 10 times, but Overpower has a chance to remove Winning Streak, which seems a little bit it seems kind of mean, because you need to press Overpower in order to buff the damage of Mortal Strike and Cleave, but Overpower can also remove the damage of Mortal Strike and Cleave. That seems a little bit mean, honestly. With the Force set, when Winning Streak ends, Overpower deals 20% additional damage and recharges 75% faster for 2 seconds per stack of Winning Streak you had. That could give you a very, very strong window. Hold on a second. You know how they try to change the warriors a little bit, so to try to kind of reduce their, I guess, ability to generate resources, but you can sometimes make the playstyle feel a little sluggish. Yeah, with this Force set, you can just get a bunch of Overpower slams on a warrior, and there's a couple of talents that can synergize with Overpower as well. You look at things like Slayers, Overpower damage increased by 30%, with improved Overpower by 15%, with the Martial Prowess, which buffs up the damage of Mortal Strike and Cleave. That's all fine and good. With Dreadnought, that potentially could give the ability Seismic Frontal Wave damage, or Overpower dealing additional damage, plus also Critical Strike damage if you play a crit heavy build. So there's a decent bit of synergy, but it seems like it's also not completely making you play in a specific playstyle, but rather giving you a couple of options, but also giving you a little bit more freedom within the talents. But generally you'll be playing around Overpower, but it's already kind of a core skill for arms anyway, so I don't imagine that it'll be changing too heavily, but maybe I'll be proven wrong here. It wouldn't be the first time I've been proven wrong with some of my predictions. Then with the Fury Warrior 2 set is also Winning Streak, which increases the damage of your Rampage by 2%, stack it up to 10 times. Rampage has a 50% chance to remove Winning Streak. With the Force set, when you gain a stack of Winning Streak, you have an even chance, which seems like a 50-50 chance. So literally a 50-50 chance of getting a proc to either cause your next Bloodthirst to deal increased 15% more damage and have 25% increased chance to critical strike, or cause your next Rage and Blow to deal 50% increased damage and generate 2 additional Rage. Oh, so each time you gain a stack, you buff either Bloodthirst or your Rage and Blow. Seems like a very, very straightforward option, and I imagine you'll likely try to see if you could bank it up with a big Recklessness window, specifically with Reckless Abandon, which further empowers Bloodthirst or Rage and Blows if you can help it, which I think would be very, very strong, but it only seems like you only get one or the other benefit with the stack. But I guess you could get stacks so you both of them can get the benefits, and maybe this seems like a very, very straightforward playstyle where you'll just continue playing Reckless Abandon, at least for the time being. But the additional rage generator could make anger management also pretty good, and it makes some of those individual talents that play around Bloodthirst or your Rage and Blow a little bit stronger as well. Kind of hard to tell exactly which direction Fury is going to go into with this one, but seems like a very decent combo, if the proc rate is good enough, of course. Lastly, we have Protection Warrior, which plays around Luck of the Draw when taking damage, causing him to cast Shield Wall for 4 seconds, and your damage done is increased while Luck of the Draw is active. With the Foresight, during Luck of the Draw Shield Slams, the chance to critical strike is increased by 50%, and its critical strikes reduce the cooldown of shield charge by 6 seconds. And the reason I like this one is because of the cooldown reduction mechanic. I actually think it's the only class that has some sort of a noticeable cooldown reduction element to this, because shield charge is a strong button. Not only does it stun your primary target, generates a lot of resources, does a lot of damage, but it can also get some defensive components as well. Like Champion's Bulwark, which causes it to do additional damage, grants you shield block, which means basic mitigations are a little bit more taken care of, grants you revenge and no cost for the next ability, and generates even more rage for you to be able to use it defensively with things like your Ignore Pain or offensively to deal more damage. Plus also Battering Ram gives you shield charge, critical strike chance, and critical strike damage a bonus of 20%, and shield charge increases your auto attack damage and speed by 10% for 20 seconds. And with auto attacks doing more damage, that means more devastated procs, which can give you more resets on shield slam, but also more resources in general. So it seems to be a nice little combo of damage, but also resources that can be used offensively or defensively, and that's what I really like about this one specifically, plus cooldown reduction. I'm a big fan of stuff like this generally for classes, and I'm kind of excited to see how this is going to work out for protection, and hopefully we'll see the spec better represented in Season 2 for both raids, but also Mythic Plus content in particular. As always, I want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and I do hope you guys did enjoy this video update. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give this video a like. I would very much appreciate it. Join our Discord community for more regular patch 11.1 PTR updates as soon as we have more available. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you like and what do you dislike about every single one of these class sets? And I'll see all of you guys in the next one.